Wonderful. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this session on the introduction to doing business in Nigeria. Again, I see the numbers going up, so I'm hoping that by the time I've gone through all the various introductions, that we will have even more people who would have joined us. But just to say that this session will dive into the macroeconomic climate, business landscape, and investment pathways in Nigeria. Key speakers, we will have key speakers from both the public and private sector who will share their expertise and insights with a specific focus on opportunities for Dutch and Italian companies. I must also add that there is a slight change to the agenda more generally. So this the session was originally supposed to be from 10 to 11 CET. It's now from 10 to 11:30. It's been merged with the next session, which was meant to be on navigating through Nigeria's business climate. So this is a slightly longer session, and hence why you will probably notice that we will have 6 speakers, but we will also have 7 people on the panel itself, and I'll explain this in a moment properly. But that's the main sort of changes for everyone to note. So we have 6 speakers altogether, and then we will have a Q&A also with all of the panel, which will be made up of 7 people. The first 4 speakers will have 10 minutes each to present, and then this will be followed by the Q&A session, which will involve all of our previous 4 speakers plus 3 other speakers. I hope everyone's following. And then I will kick off the Q&A with 2 of the 3 speakers who will be joining that part. And then we will round off with everyone, and we will have a broader engagement with the audience as well. Okay, so to start us off, we have Mr. Emeka Ofor, who is the Acting Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, and he will be focusing very much on Nigeria's macroeconomic climate. So I will hand the floor to you, Mr. Ofor.
Good morning, everyone. I welcome you to the virtual scoping mission to Nigeria. Nigeria indeed presents significant opportunities for doing business. I've been asked to speak on introduction to doing business in Nigeria. You can see the slide on the screen. The next slide will show an introduction to Nigeria. And I would like us to see Nigeria in context. Please move on to the next slide. This slide shows Nigeria in context. And we are trying to say here that Nigeria is a federation with 36 states and a federal capital territory. The 36 states can be seen as economies on their own. Because if you look at the slide, you can see that some of the states qualify to be a standalone economy. So when an investor invests in Nigeria, the investor is actually investing in several economies in one. An example is to say that in terms of population, Borno State has, Kano State, for instance, has similar size population-wise as Zimbabwe. And in terms of landmass, Borno State can compare favorably with the landmass of Panama. Niger State, with a landmass of 68,000 square kilometers, can compete favorably with the landmass of Ireland, which also has 68,000 square kilometers. And the point to make here is that Nigeria's business environment presents tremendous opportunities in terms of population, in terms of the market size, and in terms of the land size. Next slides, please. So in terms of the business environment, we have asked from investors at Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, we asked investors to give us a feedback of what it is like to do business in Nigeria. And we concentrated on asking them to give us a feedback on the challenges they have. So the slide shows the challenges that some investors have put forward to us. Next slide. Based on that, the federal government of Nigeria, in the next slide, the federal government of Nigeria set up the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council. The Business Environment Council is headed by the Vice President of Nigeria. And the essence, next slide, please. The essence of that is to basically show the federal government's commitment to doing business in Nigeria. The idea behind the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council was to remove critical bottlenecks and constraints to doing business. Over time, PEBEC, as it's called for short, has been able to engage relevant ministries, departments, and agencies of government to remove critical bottlenecks, as well as remove constraints in doing business in Nigeria. The World Bank ranking shows that Nigeria has continued to move closer to the frontiers in terms of improving its ease of doing business into the country. It appears the slides are no longer moving. Okay, I'm done with this slide. The next slide shows some of the improvements that have taken place in Nigeria's business environment. As I said earlier, there are challenges, we agree, in doing business in Nigeria, but those challenges also present significant opportunities that investors can take advantage of. One of the things that have happened is that there has been a new Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020, which has streamlined the ease of doing business in Nigeria. The Finance Acts of 2019, 2020, 2021, and recently 2022, all aimed at removing some of the bottlenecks and reducing the number of interventions required in doing business in Nigeria. Next slide, please. The next slide shows the Finance Act of 2020. Well, next slide, please. And is indicative that despite the challenges, Nigeria is expected to grow its economy by 2.5% in 2022 and 2.8% in 2023. The implication is that it is projected that Nigeria's economy will continue to grow and Nigeria's business environment will continue to improve, especially considering that the federal government of Nigeria, headed by President Muhammadu Buhari, has shown a very high level of commitment to doing business, to improving the ease of doing business in Nigeria. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So during the pandemic, we realized that several sectors outperformed the others. There were losers, there were equally winners. We found out that agriculture, ICT, trade, mining, quarrying, construction, and manufacturing were identified as growth drivers. They outperformed others, and we are able to, it's expected that they will pull the other sectors along as we progress in our growth trajectory. The next slide, please. This slide shows the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025 as part of the commitment of the federal government to improve the business environment and chart a growth pattern, a growth projection for the country. The president inaugurated or launched the National Development Plan in December last year for the period 2021 to 2025. The sectors of focus include economic growth and development, human capital development, social development. Infrastructure is a key concern in the development plan. You realize that the federal government has been investing a lot of resources to improve in Nigeria's infrastructure base, public administration, as well as regional development. About 348.7 trillion naira is required for the actualization of the National Development Plan. It should be expected that that quantum of investment will be injected into the national economy, and that the private sector will play a significant role in generating this quantum of funds. The idea is to unlock all the constraints to economic growth for inclusiveness and sustainability of the economy, to generate employment, create wealth, and reduce poverty. Nigerian private sectors and all the relevant to make this happen. The next slide asks the question, why should you invest in Nigeria? On that slide, you see about 25 reasons why you should invest in Nigeria. For me, the significant opportunities. Any investor that is interested in investing in Nigeria, both local investors and foreign investors. Nigeria is in a strategic location. Nigeria has an upwardly mobile population, growing population, which aligns with the general expectation that Nigeria's population will grow, and then that the market size will also grow, and that investors coming into Nigeria will be able to access the market in Africa, seeing that Nigeria is a gateway to Africa. There are so many other reasons on that slide, but I would not like to go into them because of time. Next slide, please. Nigeria will always remain a very significant part in every Africa agenda, and that the government of Nigeria is committed to continually improve the business environment. This slide speaks to the regions in Nigeria, the Northwest region, the Southeast region, the Northeast region, the South-South, and the Southwest. They all have significant areas or sectors of competitiveness. And any investor that comes into the country should select from among these the area or the sector or the region or location of their choice. I will encourage them to talk to us at NIPC first, so that we'll guide them through the process. Next slide, please. So ranging from agriculture to manufacturing to thermal power and so on. This slide talks about Nigeria's competitiveness. Nigeria is the gateway to Africa, and several Nigerian companies, multinational companies, have also invested in several parts of Africa. UBA, United Bank for Africa, has presence in about 20 countries in Africa. Dangote has in about 12. GT Bank has in about 10. Glo Telecommunications in about 5, and so on and so forth. I would like to mention that Nigeria's fashion, Nigeria's music, Nigeria's movies are consumed throughout Africa. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. If you want to do business in Nigeria, and when you want to start your business in Nigeria, or rather say, you are protected by the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission Act. You are expected to register with the NIPC if you are a foreign company or an enterprise in which foreigners can participate. You will be expected to register with NIPC. You can own your company 100%. You can also partner with Nigerians. You have guarantees and dispute regulation mechanism. Next slide. When you invest in Nigeria, you will be able to get some incentives. And one of them is the Pioneer Status Incentive, which is a tax holiday for 3 to 5 years. It will support you as you do your business in Nigeria, and it gives you a tax relief in terms of the company income tax. The requirements, the qualifying sectors, and all you need to know about the incentive can be downloaded from the NIPC website, nipc.gov.ng. Please access our website and get as much information as you will require on the processes and the requirements and guidelines for assessing the Pioneer Status Incentive. The next slide, please. I will soon be rounding up.
I was just going to ask if you could do that for us, please, just in a minute or so. Thank you.
In a minute, I would like to say that Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission has tremendous materials that you can get. One of them is the Compendium of Investment Incentives in Nigeria. The second is the iGuide. It's an online investment guide that you can also use, and it provides all the information. You can also subscribe to the NIPC Intelligence newsletter. You can subscribe for free, that you will be able to get all information relating to doing business in Nigeria, and so on and so forth. Finally, I would like to once again welcome you to this scoping mission, and I encourage our listeners and investors to invest in Nigeria. And I assure you that Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, we are willing and ready to support you walk the process of actualizing your aspiration of investing in Nigeria and doing business in Nigeria. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ofor. Thanks for that. And thanks very much for highlighting really just all the amendments that have come into place in terms of the Finance Act as well, just to enable doing business in Nigeria a lot easier. We will have time for some Q&A a bit later on, so we can come back to some of those. So can I just ask again to all the speakers that we all try and keep within the time that we've been allocated. We will have an opportunity for Q&A, so we'll be able to share a bit more. So I will go straight now to Mr. Ari Pleger, who is the Deputy Consul General and Head of Economic Department at the Consulate General of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Lagos. And he will be focusing on Dutch businesses and opportunities for Dutch businesses in Nigeria. Over to you, Mr. Pleger.
Good morning to you all. Thank you very much for the introduction. And I would like also to thank my colleague of the NIPC, because he mentioned already 25 reasons to invest in Nigeria, and I haven't seen them all, but I'm trying to raise awareness as well about the economic potential, and the NIPC definitely is a great partner to have in Nigeria for newcomers and for people who want to, companies who want to penetrate in the Nigerian or Lagos market. I work in Lagos on our Dutch Consulate General. We opened in 2019 because we see a lot of economic potential. Maybe next slide. Continue, yeah, because we see a lot of potential, as I mentioned, in the biggest country of Africa. More than 200 million people, natural resources. We have been a great trading partner for Nigeria. The Consul General mentioned this morning during the opening session We are in 4th position, but I think it's important to say that over the last 2 decades, we have been in the top 5 with Nigeria for import-export, and that is a great achievement, I think, and also stresses the importance of the country. And we have really a number of important brands like Friesland Campina. We have Nigerian breweries. We have Philips over here. And what we are trying to do now is also raising the awareness for Dutch companies in other sectors, because we like to deviate a little bit away from fossil fuels, because that was a great part of the import and export. And we see a lot of potential in other sectors. Next slide, please. We see a lot of, besides the 25 points to invest in Nigeria, I really share the view that, for example, in Lagos, we have many talented youngsters. Education-wise, it's great. I never worked in a country where it was so easy to explain a business model. I've been working for 15 years in other African countries. I was in the Sudan, I was in Ethiopia, Angola, Mozambique. But Nigeria is really a business-oriented climate, and that's very good, especially in Lagos, where we have a very strong private sector. Next slide, please. We have been trying to analyze where the potential is for Nigeria in the future. And because of the availability of natural resources, we think that Europe, but also the Netherlands, can play an important role in the energy transition, where there are many possibilities and opportunities for solar, for tech. It goes without saying also during the COVID and also after COVID for life science and health. There is a great demand. Many Nigerians, they travel abroad for medical consultations. But we really think now that the government's new plan of creating and establishing new hospitals and medical units all over the country is a great opportunity, not only for the Netherlands, but also for Europe. For the rest, I see opportunities in climate adaptation and mitigation. During the last COP meeting, Nigeria showed great ambition. And also working in Nigeria, I know that the governor and his administration, the commissioners, they are very much committed to this, and that offers opportunities, new business opportunities in terms of climate adaptation and mitigation. So don't be afraid of losing the job, but creating new opportunities. And that's a very good signal, I think, and an opportunity for talented youngsters in Lagos State. Next slide, please. Yeah, why are we doing this? In fact, Nigeria has always been an important country for the Netherlands, but in 2019, President Buhari and my Prime Minister Rutte agreed to intensify the economic cooperation. We have more staff now in the embassy in Abuja, and we have more staff in Lagos. And we really think that we can advance despite the difficult situation during COVID. But we managed to continue working with Nigerian counterparts, with the private sector in areas like the circular economy, like I mentioned before, also in solar, and of course, like mentioned by my Consul General this morning during his presentation, also in horticulture and in agriculture. Next slide, please. Yeah, Nigeria. I must admit that maybe Nigeria, that is not a minus, but Nigeria is a complex market. So that's why NIPC, I'm so glad that NIPC is committed to help new companies penetrating the Nigerian market. There are a few bottlenecks as well we have to solve. There is some red tape. The exchange mechanism, the foreign currency exchange, the role of the central bank. we are all, like Europe, we are in contact with Nigeria to foster and strengthen a better business climate. And that's not a one-way street, but it's a two-way street where we put, in all openness, we put the concerns on the agenda, and we try to create a better ecosystem and better conditions to invest and to do business with Nigeria. Next slide, please. The Netherlands in Nigeria is. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry.
It's very clear. Yeah.
Good. I saw it. It was a problem on my phone. Sorry for the interruption. But we really think that it's a balancing act sometimes between the great economic potential we do see in this country and the challenges I mentioned, but there are also challenges when it comes to security, especially for agriculture and horticultural investments. You need a stable investment climate. And unfortunately, in some states, the situation with regard to security is deteriorating a bit. Also, we are talking with NIPC and also with the authorities in Abuja, and we try to create also better conditions in terms of security. But that's a reason for concern. There was a travel advice where we do recommend Dutch citizens to be careful in certain areas, parts of Nigeria. There are a few no-go areas, but here in Lagos, I'm focusing on the economic development with public and private partners in the southwest, and I see a great potential. And we travel a lot also to Oyo State, and that work will continue, and that is a great opportunity. So what we are trying to do also in the Netherlands, like NIPC is doing in the broad sense, is creating that and raising the awareness of that potential in Nigeria. And if you look at the global challenges we do have, then I think it's really worthwhile exploring. We mentioned also migration before. Unfortunately, in the latest poll, a lot of youngsters and talented young would like to leave the country. Well, it is not difficult to explain that it would be not a good idea from the brain drain perspective. On the other hand, we see a lot of talented Nigerians working in countries like the US, Canada, and the UK. They are really drivers of change when they come back here, and that is a very good development. So also from that perspective, migration has two sides, and it will also be on the agenda of the European African Union Summit today, starting in Brussels. And to show the importance of Nigeria, the executive commissioner from the EU granted 820 million euros to Nigeria for supporting Nigeria in digitalization, and that's especially good for doing business, and that's a great idea. So I would like to round off. Nigeria, a great opportunity to do business. The embassy and the consulate general are looking forward to work together, among others, with NIPC and with the Lagos state government to continue and explore opportunities. And we are hosting a Lagosian trade delegation to the Netherlands in the end of March. It was difficult to do during COVID, but COVID is not yet over, but at least we are moving in the right direction. And we hope to continue and strengthen our relationship with Nigeria. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vlieger, for those words, and also just noted, I guess, some of the the focus that you made, and touching on the fact that, of course, that Nigeria, it's a large market, it's a complex market, but of course there is support from the NIPC, which had been outlined earlier. And then also, of course, I think the points that you made in relation to brain drain, which some of us prefer to refer to as brain circulation, but I think it focuses very much on that talent in terms of how we engage talent from Nigeria. So thanks very much also for that focus. So with that, very much.
sorry, I fully agree on that point, because we're trying to support as well youngsters through our Orange Carpet program with the Faith Foundation, where we really support young entrepreneurs to enter the business market and help them with establishing business models and business plans. And also we try to do that together with the banks. Later the Access Bank will speak, but that's also an important partner. And hopefully in the future, we will have also a Dutch desk at the Access Bank, which is work in progress. But it shows a really important point for the economic puzzle. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for that. I will move on now very quickly to the president of Italy-Nigeria Agency for Commerce, Industry, Mining and Agriculture, Mr. Silvano Bellinato, who will focus on Italian companies in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, and good morning, everyone. I am Silvano Bellinato, the president of the Nigeria-Italy Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture in Nigeria, and in Italy, Italia-Nigeria Agenzia per il Commercio, l'Industria, le Attività Minerarie e l'Agricoltura. So the purpose, of course, of our association is to support Italian companies to enter and establish their presence in the Nigerian market from one side, and from the other, of course, to support Nigerian companies to enter and establish their presence in the Italian market too. Given that, during my presentation, I will talk to you about four main topics. So why enter the Nigerian market, how to enter the Nigerian market, where to enter the Nigerian market, and how our association can help you to enter the market. So first of all, why enter the Nigerian market? The main reason to enter the Nigerian market is that today, this market, I'm not talking about the whole economy, but the market is already bigger than the Italian market or the Spanish one. Just to give you some figures, we have today 15,400 families that are millionaires in Nigeria, and millionaires in US dollars. And let's say half of them are in Lagos. Then we have 12.5 million of people that can be classified as wealthy people. So with an income of at least 36,000 euro per year, that means 3,000 euro per month. In Italy, the same amount of people are about 5.4 million. So we have 5.4 and 12.5 in Nigeria. Then we have 40 million people that can be classified as a standard consumer. So consumers that have an income of at least $7.5 thousand, corresponding to 6.5 thousand euro per year. In Italy, the same amount of consumers are about 33.8 million. So we have 33.8 million in Italy, 40 million in Nigeria. So I would like to say that entering in Nigeria is crucial and is key for all companies. Then second bullet, let's say, how to enter the Nigerian market. Well, in my experience, because I spent 10 years in Nigeria as a CEO of one of the largest private employers of the country, and maybe for years it was the largest employers, I can assure you that only direct presence works. Non-direct presence does not work at all. Because we cannot think to manage a market that is dynamic like the Nigerian market from Europe through one or two distributors. It just doesn't work. And why direct presence works? Because you need to take into account some factors. First of all, the structure and the fragmentation of the distribution networks. Then the cultural context that is quite different from the European one. Then also you need to take into account also that it's very important to show the presence of your company and your product on ground, so on the market. And then you need to take into account also that there is now a lot of competitors from other countries. So, and not only from China, but there's almost all of them. They are also coming from India, from Turkey, Lebanon, and so on. So, this is why also when companies are asking me that they would like to enter in the market, but they just need one or two good distributors, I tell them that this approach is not going to work at all. Because I can find maybe the good distributor, but then this distributor could be maybe from Port Harcourt, from Lagos, from Abuja, and we look only at his own market and finish. But Nigeria, from the other side, is too big and too dynamic for just one or two distributors. And you need also to take into account that a distributor has from one side he has dozens of companies that like yours in his portfolio. And from the others, he faces every day the pressure of your competitors that they are already on ground, that they try, to push for the distributor to buy their products. So the results will be that in a very short time, you will be first marginalized, then you will be out of the market, and then you will start to feel frustrated and start to complain, and the people will start to come back to me, and then they will start to say, Silvano, I have a distributor in Nigeria, everyone is growing, but I don't understand why I'm not growing like the others. You are not growing like the others simply because you do not have your direct presence in the market. And this is why companies like Coca-Cola, Heineken, Kellogg's, Unilever, Procter & Gamble, but also Ariston for Italy, Glaxo, but also IT companies like Microsoft, IBM, Oracle, Cisco, even Google. Why Google should need a presence in Nigeria? But all this company has their direct presence in the market, because direct presence matters first, and it means being present, showing your products, scouting, selecting, and reviewing your distributors and your customers every day. So let's go to the third point, because we saw why it's important to enter, because the market is bigger than the Italian one, how to enter direct presence. Now let's see where to enter the Nigerian market. But let's say that it is not difficult to enter the Nigerian market, because first of all, it is not also necessary to enter all of Nigeria. Because if you target, just to give you an idea, if you target the first states, the first 6 states, you can get easily the 80–90% of your market, of your potential market. And we are talking about states of Lagos, Rivers, Delta, Oyo, Anambra, and Kano. So the second is that where you need to settle. You need to settle your presence in Lagos, and there's no way. Because Lagos is also the financial, the commercial, and also the technological hub, not only of Nigeria, but also of the entire Africa. Lagos, just to give you an idea, has a GDP of 140 billion US dollars. So if it were a state in itself, it would be the 5th largest economy in Africa. So above, let's say, Lagos, you will have only South Africa, Egypt, and Algeria. But if you consider that 93% of the export of Algeria is related with oil and gas, you can easily understand that Lagos is far above Lagos alone is far above all the other nations of Africa, like Morocco, Tunisia, Senegal, Ghana, Angola, Madagascar, Mozambique, Kenya, and so on. So we saw why enter in Nigeria, because the market is big, how to enter in Nigeria, direct presence, where to enter Lagos. And now let's see how also our association can help companies to enter the Nigerian market. We can help companies entering the Nigerian market in 2 main ways. From one side, we have signed agreements with a lot of international and, of course, very reliable service companies from all over the sectors that can support your companies in establishing your presence in Nigeria. So we can send to you, we can give to you the list of all these companies, these service companies, with their services and the price list that they have with us. So just to give you an example, we have, I don't know, for the banking services, we have Stanbic Bank. For the accounting services, we have Creston International. For the logistics services, DHL, and so on. Then let's see the second way in which we can help companies to enter the market. We are now going to open a showroom and a co-working center in the center of Victoria Island in Lagos. Let's say that this project comes from, let's say, one of the main requests we collected among companies that they are interested in entering in Nigeria. Because company from one side, of course, they are interested to enter in the market, but maybe from the other side, sometimes they are reluctant, to invest all the money that they are necessary to enter the market by their own, so to enter the market alone. So now we can give it to them in the center of Victoria Island, which is, the commercial and financial heart of Lagos. So in the center of Lagos, a company now can have its permanent exhibition area in which the company can show its product. And where also, of course, our staff can present the products to the local operators, can forward also to the company all their contact details, and also can collect their orders. So from one side, you have the showroom. From the other side, you can have also your dedicated, let's say, office with or without your dedicated personnel, with maybe a kind of, let's say, with a formula of the all-inclusive package. So just to give you also a figure, for having your showroom or your office, the cost is less than 30,000 euro per year. So with less than 30,000 euro per year, you can settle now your presence in Nigeria. And again, I repeat, this is very important because only direct presence really works. And direct presence, again, means being present, showing your products, scouting, selecting, and reviewing your distributors and your customers every day. So let's say now, as a final recap, also to conclude my speech, let's say why entering Nigeria? Because this market is now bigger than the Italian one. How to enter direct presence, where to enter Lagos, and how we can help you to establish your presence in Nigeria simply by giving you your showroom or your office in Lagos. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bedinato, and thanks for making that so succinct as well at the very end, just in terms of the attractiveness of Nigeria and Lagos, as you mentioned, to Italy. Thanks very much for that. And also, I think, showcasing the wealth, as you said, of Nigeria, and then looking at Lagos in particular. I think that will be of real interest to some of those who are participating today. Very quickly now, I am going to move to our next speaker, who is Mr. Ralph Oppara. He is the Group Head Commercial Banking Division at Access Bank. And he will be introducing, he'll be giving us an introduction to Nigeria's banking system and the support of Access Bank to international companies. Over to you, Mr.
Thank you.
Oppara.
Thank you, Stella. Thanks for that introduction. As Stella said, my name is Ralph Oppara, and then I'll basically giving you a snippet of the macro and trying to do business, the financial outlay in doing business in Nigeria. Thank you. Next slide, please. Thank you. So on the back of, well, COVID, we see that Nigeria is beginning to show sudden growth. And the growth you see is propelled by three critical factors, which is rising oil prices, since Nigeria's main revenue earning is oil exports, government policy interventions, especially coming from the Central Bank of Nigeria, in providing financial support for manufacturing entities and pharmaceutical entities in the country. And then, of course, finally, through international financial support based on certain borrowings that the country has been doing. So we see that reflected in the GDP growth of 4.03 when we compare it against the previous quarter. We see some level of stability in the exchange rates in terms of the NAFEX. And over the period, we saw a convergence of, at the time, the CBN official rate with what we call the NAFEX rate. External reserves have been growing, even though there was a slight dip in 2022, based on the fact that CBN released dollars to meet certain requirements on capital importation requirements to settle certificates of capital importation. As I said before, we've seen crude oil prices rise. So basically, these fundamentals have helped the country try to get back on its growth trajectory. And international economists project that Nigeria will see growth between 3 to 4% in 2022. Next slide, please. So on the back of that, I'll try and summarize the banking industry here in Nigeria. Next slide, please. So in Nigeria, where the financial industry is regulated by the Central Bank of Nigeria, supported by the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Company that safeguards depositors' funds, the Corporate Affairs Commission, that a lot of companies coming into Nigeria will be interacting with, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and of course, the Nigerian stock market. So there are about 22 banks in the country, grouped into 3 tiers. So the tier 1 banks basically control about 67% of the total assets in the country. And then of course you have the tier 2 and tier 3, where some of the internationals like Citibank, etc. stay. Next slide, please. So looking at the banking environment, I think that generally the banking sector weathered or has weathered the storm fairly well. I think pre-COVID, what has helped us was that pre-COVID, the central bank had already started talking about improving the capital buffers of banks. And of course, recently, they've launched the Basel III, bankers are adopting the Basel III criteria. So on the back of those capital buffers, we've seen return on assets being fairly stable, return on equity also being consistent. Capital adequacy ratios, as I mentioned before, have helped the banks. Most of the banks are well capitalized, apart from a few that are undercapitalized. And we believe that CBN would ensure that the capitalization, that improvement around the capitals. NPLs, which are the, well, looking at bad debts, have remained fairly low. And I must say that this is supported by the CBN providing certain forbearances on facilities around the oil and gas and manufacturing entities. And when we talk about forbearances, it means that CBN decided to grant certain moratorium in terms of repayment for some facilities and ensure that certain interest rates remain low at single digits. So that also helped the industry in managing its loans. Liquidity ratio and cost-income ratio has remained fairly stable. And I think these are certain factors that have helped banks weather the storm. Next slide, please. So looking at trends in the banking industry, we think that there'll be banking consolidation going forward. In the course of 4 years, I think we've seen about 3 consolidations. Polaris Bank, which was a CBN bridge bank, taking over Sky Bank. The merger between Access Bank and Diamond Bank in 2019, and the recent announcement between Titan Bank and Union Bank. And we expect to see a bit more of such consolidations as banks try to get into the retail play and take advantage of trying to serve the over 200 million individuals which make up the population of the country. We see certain loan restructurings happening on the back of, as I mentioned before, forbearances provided by the central bank around agriculture, manufacturing, and the oil and gas sector. I must say that CBN has been helpful in terms of trying to encourage the manufacturing base. The CBN governor came out, I think, last week to provide certain statistics showing that the CBN had provided over 3 trillion naira in supporting the manufacturing base. And these loans are single-digit loans, long tenured, that are supposed to encourage growth in the real sector. Of course, the retail play, which I had mentioned before, and we see banks trying to serve the retail play, of course, ensuring that in serving the population, you're trying to bring down the overall cost of doing business. As I mentioned by the Deputy Consul General, lots of young Nigerians, and you see a lot of presence of fintechs coming into the States. I was looking at certain statistics, and I think that monies coming into Africa to acquire fintechs was estimated about $5.8 billion, of which about 1.8 billion came into Nigeria. So Nigeria is a big player when it comes to the fintech space, and quite advanced because we are not bogged down by some of the legacy technology that you see within the Western or European economies. So this is a big space and a growing space within Nigeria. And of course, for us banks, we see them both as, well, disruptors, but also a way an area we can collaborate in order to provide service to our customers, and of course, work down the cost to serve. CBN has also come up with certain matrices or monetary policies that would ensure that, or would encourage banks to continue to lend. As you know, banks in Nigeria have been very conservative in lending. So one of the critical ratios that the CBN came out with is what we call the loan to deposit ratio of 65, which basically encourages banks to lend, especially towards SMEs and the real sector. So next slide, please. So basically, in effect, what I'm saying is that there are certain policies to encourage the real sector. I think there are opportunities to get low cost funding for companies that are trying to set up businesses here. Of course, the credit risk still resides with the bank, but ultimately the opportunities to get long-tenured, low-cost funding through the support of the Central Bank of Nigeria. I think to summarize, there's been a lot of push towards inclusion. Like I mentioned before, population of Nigeria estimated at about 200 million people and above. So there's a need to bring the unbanked into the formal financial system. And the CBN has enacted policies that would encourage and support the inclusion banking. Part of it is the payment service holding company that allows some of the major telcos acquire licenses that can provide savings and deposit services to customers. Of course, they've come up with the e-Naira currency, which is also a critical instrument in providing services or for the unbanked to switch to come into the formal sector. Again, issues around data to support the fintechs, etc. There's the release of the open banking regulatory framework, which has come into place. And of course, a lot of internationals would always tackle us on this, which is the FX, provision of FX. So I know that CBN is trying to harmonize the FX policies, ensure that they converge most of the multiple rates you see in the system, and then provide certain supply of dollars to meet demands. Again, last week, the CBN governor came up with a policy called RT200, which is raised to getting $200 billion in export proceeds to support demand in dollars. Next slide, please. So with regards to that, again, just to expatiate on that policy from the CBN, which is raised to $200 billion, in order to encourage this within 3 to 5 years, CBN is willing to provide what we call intervention funding to support companies that are trying to export through value adding creation. So if you're going to be adding value in terms of export, there are facilities that you can take that can support your value addition to export process. The same in supporting non-oil commodities. Also, CBN is going to be instrumental in encouraging the financing of non-oil export terminals to ensure that the issues and the bureaucracies and bottlenecks with regards to exporting proceeds. And of course, try and provide a rebate scheme to encourage exporters to sell their dollars within the official windows of the central bank. And finally, CBN had mentioned that they will set up an export summit where they'll bring all critical players in the industry to come up with the concerns they have, and of course, try and bring solutions to these concerns. Next slide, thank you. So looking at Access Bank very quickly, next slide, please. We are one of the foremost...
Can I just ask you to wrap up very quickly, please?
Okay, we're one of the foremost banks in the country. We have 13 African subsidiaries, 1 UK subsidiary, and 4 rep offices. Next slide, please. We remain a strong player within the Nigerian and African space. We, of course, are a wholesale and a retail financial player within the Nigerian market. And critically, next slide, please, within our portfolio is that we have set up certain desks to help support businesses that are coming into Nigeria. We have the German desk, where that was set up in collaboration with DEG, or the German Investment Development Bank. The Dutch desk, as the Deputy General had mentioned, in conjunction with Invest International to support Dutch companies. And basically what this means is that by having an expatriate that understands the cultural interplay in doing business, they'll be there to understand the business language and then provide handshakes between Nigerian entities and foreign corporates that are willing to come into Nigeria, and of course the Chinese desk. Next slide, please. So at Access Bank, these desks are here to ensure that we try and handhold you through the financial minefields that may provide certain level of local expertise in trying to drive your business, come up with strategic partners, working with, of course, the various chambers of commerces and critical networks to ensure that we're able to handhold you as you come into Nigeria and as you interact with Nigerian entities in the country. I think that's about it. So next slide, to thank you for the opportunity to present, and thank you. And of course, we're available for any other questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Mr. Oppara, thank you very much. I think there was definitely a lot of information there, and hopefully the audience will be able to follow up with you just to get some more information. We are now pretty much within the Q&A part of this discussion, and I'm going to open this up myself with a few questions to two speakers who are also joining the panel. So our first one is Miss Yvonne van der Vorst, who is the Global Director Dairy Development at Friesland-Campina. And then our next engagement will be with the Director and Corporate Risk Manager of Logos Travel Support and Solutions, Mr. Claudio Moruzzi. So I will go first of all to Ms. van der Vorst with a couple of questions myself before we move on to the next speaker. But at this point, can I just encourage everyone who wants to ask a question, please make sure that you're putting your questions into the Q&A, and I will come to that as soon as I can. Yvonne, coming to you first. So with Friesland-Campina, which is a subsidiary of Royal Friesland-Campina in the Netherlands, being the foremost company of dairy products in Nigeria, and with brands such as Peak, Three Crowns, and Friso, which have all become household names. I'm assuming that the audience are probably no strangers to your company. But can you also explain to us for yourself what the benefits are of having a local representation and an office in Nigeria? I think this was touched on before by one of the speakers about having a presence in country, and it would be good just to hear that from your point of view.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you very much for giving me the floor to be here as well. I listened with a lot of interest to the previous speakers, and I fully agree with for example, what Mr. Bellinato referred to also with the benefits of being locally present. I think also mainly related to the market side of that. What we also do, and as you introduced me, I'm the Director of Dairy Development. As Friesland-Campina WAMCO in Nigeria, we have been active for the past 11 years also in dairy development, so developing the upstream side. And one of the benefits of being locally present is that you have the overview of the total value chain from upstream to downstream. So you really understand the full value chain, and you understand where you can interfere in an agile and fast way, because you have people locally present understanding the market from end to end. And you can also very quickly, you know who to contact and with which stakeholders to work with in order to accelerate and to improve the things you want to do. So that's by far. And I also heard somebody say you can adapt faster when you're locally present. So that's for sure one of the big benefits.
Great, thank you very much. And also perhaps just a follow-on question from that. As a company, as you mentioned yourself, you've been in Nigeria for about 11 years. What kind of advice would you have for other European companies who would be interested in entering this market?
Well, that's of course a very big question. And the past 11 years we have been focusing on local sourcing, but before the presence of our company, of course, goes way back before that as well. But one of the advices I would give about dairy is to work together. If you want to develop a segment, you can never do it alone. Nobody can do it alone. And a sector like dairy is quite complex because you need the right inputs, you need the right development, you need the way to market, the processing, get it processed and get it to market after that. And if you look at other, if I may compare, take it from the dairy perspective, and you can do that for any kind of business from my part. If you look at nations that are big at a certain segment, like dairy, they work together. So partnerships is key. And with partnerships, I mean true equal partnerships. So you, with that, I mean you have the same purpose, increasing, for instance, in from our perspective, the self-sustainability, the self-sustaining dairy market of Nigeria. And we, even though we're big and we have a long heritage in Nigeria, we cannot do it alone. So for that reason, for instance, in the past 1.5 years, we have set up a local excellence center to share knowledge. And we have set up a consortium with other business partners to introduce them as well to Nigeria. They're not familiar with Nigeria yet. We are, so we can give them the familiarity, if you'd like, and they can bring in their improved inputs and knowledge, and together working on the same purpose.
Okay, no, that's great. Thanks very much. And then the other question that I wanted to touch on as well, because I know that a lot of companies like yourselves and others are also looking very much these days at social impact as well. So with an increasing demand for dairy products in Africa, we know that a lot of the activities associated with these also negatively impact the environment. What are some of the measures that Friesland Campina has taken or intends to take to reduce its carbon footprint in Nigeria?
Yeah, it's a very good and of course a very current topic. Besides doing what I think a lot of companies do in improving the carbon footprint by introducing solar energy solutions, reforestation projects, we all have them in place. But besides that, if you increase the efficiency of a segment, you can also reduce actually the environmental impact. If you talk about milk again, if you need 10 cows that produce 1 kilogram of milk each, or you have 1 cow producing 10 kilogram, it's still a very natural level for a cow to produce, but the efficiency will be much higher. And with that also, for instance, the carbon footprint per kilogram of milk will be much lower.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to ask one more question to you, and then I'll move on to the next speaker.
Sure.
But this one is very much around, again, from your experience of doing business in Nigeria, what do you consider to be some of the major constraints preventing the Nigerian, the dairy sector itself to grow, and what interventions can help to capture the opportunities and alleviate some of the key constraints?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons for having this event is that it's not always easy, right, to build businesses and to develop in Nigeria. My biggest advice would be actually don't give up, right? Just sometimes you go 2 steps forward and you fall 1 step back. Just keep on doing that. And without repeating myself, as it's quite challenging, and as I think also somebody said that every state has its own economy and its own dynamics, you again there work together with local partners, with government, with knowledge institutions, and with the industry. And also somebody said, and I agree to that the industry has a tendency to move fast and adapt very quickly. But at the same time, you need the government, for instance, to create the enablers, right? So security, infrastructure, and work and focus on a certain area, share your ideas, and again, work all towards the same purpose. So if you, one of the biggest constraints could be to compete each other on the basic enablers. And my advice would be not to do that, to really define together what the basic enablers are and should be put in place in order to do what you want to achieve. So that, again, I come back to the fact of working together and building bridges internally within Nigeria.
That's great. Thank you very much, Ms. van der Vorst, for those points. Before I come to Mr. Claudio Moruzzi, I just wanted to take one question just from the audience, which is actually directed at Mr. Plieger. So this is from Mark Steen, and he's asking, he says he's working on a multi-million cacao sector development project, and he's looking for potential businesses to partner with and for Nigerian experts in this area. What is the best entry point and way to become connected to this community in terms of cacao? And what are the best entry points and international and national organizations to contact to establish a network in Nigeria? So this is a question for Mr. Plieger.
Thank you. The line was not very clear. No, that's very good. I mean, we work together with the Netherlands and the Invest International, and that would be a very good point of contact. Also, the Ministry of Agriculture in the Netherlands, and as I mentioned before, we are always here at the consulate and also in the embassy to bring partners together. We have quite an extensive network. So my recommendation will be to provide us with more details, and we'll come back to him as soon as possible to see opportunities if we can strengthen or we can foster a business model, or we can bring partners together. That's what we are trying to do, and that's our core business. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thanks very much. Can I also just make a point to colleagues at NABC? There's also a question from Jerry, but perhaps that might be, you might be able to answer that by just responding in writing. If not, I'll come back to it if it's still there. But for now, I'm going to move on very quickly also to Mr. Claudio Moruzzi, who is the Director and Corporate Risk Manager at Logos Travel Support and Solutions. And I have a few questions for you as well, Mr. Moruzzi. And you're welcome to the session. Can you just first of all, please explain to our audience what your main activities are in Nigeria and your experience within the business climate as well?
Yeah, and first of all, good morning to everyone. And the business that we provide is a one-stop shop. So I'm in Nigeria since 2013 with different companies, and I was the security manager for different companies, starting from oil and gas, logistic, and now I have my own business with the partnership with the local Nigerians. And we provide what is the said one-step shop. So from your house to the business meeting point, back to your house. This through the respect of the Nigerian law, that in terms of security is one of the biggest challenge. For example, from my side, that I worked in plenty different countries, from Europeans one to Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan, Lebanon, and other in Africa like Mozambique and Kenya. So starting from this point, the respect of the rules and the Nigerian laws can be done only, as Mr. Silvano mentioned, if you are on the ground and you know exactly what you have to do. And this one in the respect of even the internationally recognized code of conduct from the security point of view, like, for example, the voluntary principle of security on human rights. So in this term, Logos, through memorandum of understanding with the different MOPOL squadrons that are specialized units that are present only in Nigeria, but there are the units that allow to have armed escort personnel. Because, for example, this is one of the best challenges and the main difference that you can find with plenty of other countries. In Nigeria, the armed escort service can be done only by law enforcement units. So the private sector, the private security sector, is not allowed to do armed escort. In this regard, even, for example, with the use of security asset like armored vehicles, vehicles where are deployed policemen with the siren or revolving lights, you have to be authorized by the Inspector General of Police. And this is another peculiarity of Nigeria. So thanks to the fact that we are in Nigeria, we are a Nigerian company with the relationship within the Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Interior, with the Inspector General of Police, we have this kind of license and memorandum of understanding in order to protect the personnel from their house or from the airport or whenever is the entry point till the place where they do their own business and back to the house or place or to the airport in order to fly out of the countries.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Mr. Maurizio. I was going to ask you a specific question in relation to security, which I think you've really just covered. So much more specifically on services for citizens or for individuals. From your point of view, what are the future opportunities for the tourism sector in Nigeria?
Yeah, that is quite another peculiarity inside the country. So unfortunately, Nigeria, starting from, for example, when I entered in this beautiful country in 2013 till now, the security environment unfortunately downgraded a lot, and the kidnap for ransom meanwhile before was only focused on Western expat and Nigerian rich citizen, now is really spreading, and even with the what we call the one shot, so the very fast ball that they kidnap a person, go to the ATM, withdraw all the money that they can and release the person. So taking in consideration this aspect, the security is very, very important to be covered, but Nigeria offering, particularly, for example, even in Lagos or in a state like River State, there are really good place to visit. So with the proper travel agency like what we can provide, so a 360 degrees approach, I think that Nigeria can develop even this aspect, because if you do your proper, as we say, homework, and you are not improvised in the market, for sure, there is plenty of places in Nigeria that can attract tourism. There are plenty of opportunities for this sector, and the security must be just one box to tick in order to protect the personnel, to give them a safe trip, but for sure there are plenty of opportunity and places to visit and culture to discover even in Nigeria.
That's great. Thank you very much, Claudio. I may have some more questions for you, but I want to link this to, there's a question that we received from Rere Indonesia, and I'm going to direct that question to Mr. Bellinato. And she's asking, or she or he, apologies, is asking, they would like to know what effort NABC, but that's a question for the organizers, or the Italian Chamber of Commerce makes to ensure the public and private sector facilitation or investments For instance, it would have been helpful to have representatives from key MDAs in Nigeria at the session. Again, probably another question for the organizers. But I just wanted to throw a part of that question to you, and also perhaps if you had a response to some of the points I think that Claudio had made in relation to security in Nigeria as it relates to the tourism sector.
From my side, yeah.
Yes, just if you had any thoughts on it. I know that that's not your focus, but yes, if you had any thoughts on it.
Well, I would like to say also concerning security that most of the time is one of the questions that companies are asking us, because maybe also of a bias that Nigeria has. But from my point of view, but Mr. Bruzzi, of course, can also intervene. I would like to say that if a company is just following maybe the rules and maybe is focusing on his business, nothing is on ground, or there's no particular risks. Because just to give you an idea, if you are living or if you have your business in Lagos, and for a foreign company, as we said, Lagos is fine. When you're reading, and when we are reading something that is happening, on the news, on the media, and I can say, okay, usually we are talking, about what is happening in Boko with Boko Haram and so on. But just to give you an idea of the dimension of the country, if you are in Lagos and something is happening in Boko, is something like if I were in Milan, in Italy, and something is happening in Amsterdam, or vice versa. If something is happening in Milan or in Italy, and you are sitting in your desk in Amsterdam, maybe you can read this on the newspaper, but then in the end, it will not affect you too much. So this, of course, is looking at the business. So let's say from the business point of view, if you are staying in Lagos or in Abuja, so you do not have any particular issue. Of course, if your company, you want to travel to some different areas, maybe it could be different. But in general, there's no particular problem and issues on that side. From the other side, going back to the question of Miss or Madam, I don't know, regarding what, the institution like, Business Council, Chambers of Commerce, what they are doing. But as also Ms. Yvonne said, I believe, and also Mr. Pliger, is that companies, the first things they need to do when they want to enter in one market, also Nigeria, like all the others, is just to pick up the phone and start to talk when you have a clear idea with your embassy, with your consulate, and then start to work with them, and then with an IPC. So this is the correct way to enter in one market. So to start to work with the global institution. If you start to think and to snake, to try to think because a friend of yours told you that something you can do and avoid issues, you will go to trouble. You will really go straight to trouble. So the first step is going and working with the institution. And for sure, the Buhari administration is doing this. Is doing this because also, with they made a flag for the compliance. So compliance first. So, all this, because also there is another maybe issue that we are talking when we are talking about business in Nigeria, the difficulty of doing business. But if you are following, as we said, if you are going through, your embassy, through your consulate, through your organization with an IPC, nothing will happen to the company. It's just when the company start to be, advised by non-reliable advisor, the problem will start to be there.
Right.
This is just.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. I want to bring a slightly different dimension or a different country into the perspective. And for that, I would also like to introduce Mr. Sebastian Barasuda Fonseca, who is also from Access Bank, and he's the head of the German desk. And I just wanted to ask you, Sebastian, just a question in relation to the German desk itself. Since its establishment, have you seen an increase in the number of German companies entering the Nigerian market? And then a subsequent question is also, so for example, if a company today were interested in receiving financial support from the desk, either the German one or the Dutch one, Mr. Oppara, can you explain what that process would be and which factors would increase the likelihood of them successfully receiving funding? So I'll start with Mr. Sebastian, please.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, and Stella, thank you for the introduction. My name is Sebastian Barroso. I'm responsible for the German desk at Axis Bank. As Ralph mentioned earlier, it's a collaboration between the German Development Bank and Axis Bank since 2017 now, so for more than 4 years. As also Ralph mentioned, we are having the same concept with the Dutch desk. Reason for that is exactly because we've seen that there is an interest for Dutch and international companies to invest and to also operate in Nigeria. To answer your question, I would say that this financial inclusion, which was mentioned during this workshop here today, and the financial syndication is quite important. And I believe we are one part or one parameter of the whole concept that enables people to make their decision in coming into Nigeria. So obviously the interest from European countries and European corporates is quite high when it comes to Africa. And I think this comes without saying that Nigeria plays a very, very important role. Are we successful in bringing in more Germans? I believe to answer the question is quite difficult. Some of the companies we are working with are already present. We have a huge operative profile and of companies that are already here, especially for the SMEs. This is something where we want to be the ambassadors, and where we, together with partnerships of the consulates, with the chambers, we want to make the decision more likely, more easier, and more accessible. So I believe, yes, we see more interest from European countries, and indeed, yes, we see an increase in foreign investments and also in the operative sector.
Okay, thank you, Sebastian. And Stella, to answer your part of the question with regards to ease of doing business, I think that's really the center of why we had to set up the desk, to understand the peculiarities of each target market in trying to set up business. So we look at what the bottlenecks are, what the issues are, documentations, etc., and we try to simplify it. Of course, it doesn't mean that a company trying to access finance will not meet certain risk acceptance criteria, but we try to make it easy in terms of the documentation and what is required from us. So for instance, there's a business plan. Are you looking for collaboration, issues like that? So we try to bring that into the works to ensure that at least to some extent, setting up a business or expanding a business, or trying to collaborate with maybe a new business, trying to look for Nigerian partners or to act as a distributor or a vendor for its services, it's slightly easier. Again, remember that ultimately as a bank, we act as intermediaries, and the center of that is trust. So what we try to do is look for credible partners and then introduce them or ensure that they have good handshakes with credible corporates coming from the international space. So I think that's part of the task we set out to do within the desk. Okay. Thank you very much, Stella. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm going to throw this question out there, and I realize we don't have very much time, so very brief responses on this. This is a question in the Q&A, and to sum it up, I think the question is about how do Dutch companies in particular work with, or are they ready to work with, Nigerian youth chambers of commerce? Quite a broad question, but I'm going to throw that out. So anyone who wants to take it.
Maybe I can start. I think nowadays doing business is really creating partnerships, and we do of course use ourselves, the Chamber of Commerce. They play a crucial role because you need a network and to help newcomers to the market. So we are generally working closely with the Lagos Chamber of Commerce, but also with other economic entities, just to strengthen our position and to make it easier for newcomers to the market. Because, for example, like Friesland Campina, Nigerian breweries, they are institutionalized in this country. They have maybe even a better network than we do. But for newcomers, it's also a different time to start a market in difficult economic situations around the globe. So what we really try to do is to create the awareness and to create the ecosystem that companies don't lose too much time with being interested and coming to the market in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that response. I think Ms. van der Vost, I think you wanted to come in on this, or I saw you unmute yourself, so I just wanted to check.
No, not in particular. I fully agree with Mr. Plieger, and indeed we are already a long-established company. So, but looking at other companies that we work with that also want to establish in Nigeria, the more practical and quicker it is possible, the more it will motivate those companies to do so. So, but that's more a general comment that goes for anywhere, but also accounts for Nigeria. So I totally agree with Mr. Plieger's comment.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks very much for that.
Maybe you allow me one remark more. If I compare doing business in Nigeria with other countries in Africa, there is that great potential, but my advice is always be prepared and invest in time in preparing for your activities in Nigeria, because that adds to the opportunities of success. And maybe on a private level, I would say Nigeria is not for beginners. So it requires a certain business expertise, and the Nigerians will help you to take and moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to pose a couple more questions, I think, very quickly. We have about three minutes. But one of those questions is for Mr. Morutsi. And it really is, in terms of your experience in Nigeria, how would you describe the business culture? And is there anything for other Italian or Dutch companies to keep in mind when entering the market?
But frankly speaking, concerning security, I'm fully agree with what Mr. Bellinato said. So the respect of the point of entry must be with the respective country consulate or embassy. But there are plenty of Nigerian companies that have the full expertise and the full competencies that international security companies has. So the Nigerian market is offering whatever solutions are for the Nigerian market and into the specific. So thanks to the expertise that we have on the ground, thanks to the relationship that we have with the government institution, we can keep safe the personnel inside the Nigerian environment. This through relationship with the consulate, but even through the contact direct with the different companies. For sure, what must be done in the early stages is an analysis of what the market can offer. And on this specific case, I think that the best approach is or through the, as Mr. Bellinato said, the embassy or the consulate, or some organization like NABC or the Italian Chamber of Commerce and so, or through these with the local companies. These even taking in consideration the cost, because at the end, when we are speaking about risk management, security, and so, the aspect of the cost is something that we have always to analyze. And taking some international companies which are maybe not really a great footprint in the country can expose the international company to higher cost, and in order to enter in the market can even face some issue because the international security company doesn't really know all the security laws and aspects that must respect in Nigeria as the relationship with the government authorities.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moruzzi. There was one more question that I wanted to pose, just going back to Access Bank, because this was a question that was to do with sectors, and I thought that would be quite important. So perhaps just very, very briefly, I've been told that we need to close. I just wanted to find out if you prioritize specific sectors at all. So that's either for Sebastian or for Ralph, but very, very briefly.
Okay, Stella. Yes. So I can later share on maybe put on the chat certain sectors that have shown resilience or growth post-COVID. So, for instance, we see tremendous growth within the telecom sector, of course, based on data. The transport sector, the construction sector, the agri, and now the manufacturing sector are on a growth stage. So quarter on quarter, in terms of growth, these are the sectors that are showing resilience and rebounding very quickly within the country.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much, everyone, for all your responses, for the very engaging discussion as well. And I hope that audience and participants have found this very useful as you move on to the next sessions. But just to say thank you, really, starting with Mr. Emeka Ofo, Mr. Ari Pliger, Mr. Bellinato, Mr. Oppara, Ms. Yvonne van der Vorst, Mr. Claudio Moruzzi, and Mr. Sebastian Barroso da Fonseca. It's been a packed program, so I hope that everyone got something out of it, and I hope that you felt it was seamless enough as well. But thank you very much for your time and for supporting us this morning.